Imagine being just 15 years old, and watching your world crumble as your mother fights a battle with cancer. Now, imagine knowing that you're the only one who can help, but you're running out of time and options. This is the story of Julian Reyes, a young artist in New York City, whose love for painting and determination would lead him down an unexpected and life-changing path. Julian Reyes sat at the small table in their cramped apartment in Brooklyn, his fingers trembling slightly as he mixed the vibrant paints on his palette. The soft hum of the city outside barely reached him, his thoughts consumed with the weight of his mother's illness. For the past few months, Maria Reyes had been fighting a silent battle against an aggressive form of cancer. Doctors had done what they could, but the treatments had stopped working. The hope of recovery was now nothing more than a flickering light, dimming with every passing day. Julian's mother had always been his biggest supporter. She'd been there when he first picked up a paintbrush at the age of 6, and even when he struggled as a teenager to find his voice in the art world, Maria had encouraged him. "Your art is your gift, Julian," she'd say, her smile lighting up the room. But now, with her hospital bills piling higher than ever and no insurance to cover the costs, Julian had no choice but to turn to his artwork for the only solution he could see. Each brushstroke he made was a silent prayer, an act of desperation as he created piece after piece, hoping for a miracle. He had put his heart and soul into each painting, capturing the joy of life that his mother had always embodied. His work ranged from abstract landscapes to vivid portraits, each telling a story of love, struggle, and survival. But Julian knew that no matter how much passion he poured into his creations, it would never be enough to pay for the treatment his mother desperately needed. His savings were gone, his family's resources exhausted. That night, after a long day at the hospital, Julian made a decision. He would sell his art. He set up an Instagram account and began posting photos of his paintings, sharing his mother's story along with the artwork. With the hashtags #ArtForHope and #SaveMariaReyes, he asked his followers for help. At first, the posts went unnoticed. The city's fast-paced life had no room for one teenager's fight. But Julian refused to give up. He kept posting, kept sharing his heart, hoping that somewhere, someone would see the value in his work, and in his story. Then, one evening, something remarkable happened. A message appeared in his inbox. It was from a user with the handle Ibrahim_Traore_official. Julian hesitated for a moment. Could it be? He clicked the message open, and his heart raced as he read the words, "I saw your artwork, Julian. I believe in what you're doing. I would like to purchase every piece you posted, and I will help with your mother's treatment." Who was this mysterious benefactor, and how could they possibly afford to purchase all of Julian's artwork? And what did they mean by helping with his mother's treatment? Was this just a cruel prank, or was this the break Julian had been desperately praying for? The message Julian had received was unbelievable, yet every part of him screamed that it was real. Could someone so powerful, truly care enough to help? The promise of financial support was a lifeline, but the truth behind it would send Julian's world into a whirlwind of emotions. Who was Ibrahim Traore, and why was he so determined to help a stranger in need? Julian stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, trying to convince himself that it wasn't some cruel joke. He reread the words, his eyes moving across the screen slowly as if he expected them to change. But no, they remained the same. Ibrahim Traore, a name Julian had only heard in passing, was offering to buy his entire collection of paintings. The name Traore was well known in the business world, an empire built on tech startups and innovative solutions. He was a billionaire, a mogul. But why would someone like him take such an interest in a 15-year-old artist from Brooklyn? His hands were shaking now, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was excitement, hope, the very thing that had been absent from Julian's life for months. He quickly typed a response, still unsure of how to process what was happening. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say." Minutes later, another message popped up on his phone. "I've been following your story. I believe your art can inspire others, and I want to help you and your mother. Let's talk." The next day, Julian found himself on a video call with Ibrahim Traore. The man on the other side of the screen was everything Julian expected: polished, composed, and a little intimidating. Ibrahim's voice, however, was kind and warm. "Julian, I've seen a lot of things in my life. But your passion, your devotion to your mother, it moved me. I want to support you in every way I can." Julian's heart raced. "Thank you, Mr. Traore. I don't know how to repay you, but I promise I'll keep making art. I'll keep going, no matter what." Ibrahim nodded, his expression serious. "That's why I'm doing this. Your work, Julian, is more than just paintings. It's a message. And people need to see that message. I'm not just buying your art, Julian. I'm going to help you and your mother. You won't need to worry about those medical bills anymore." Julian's breath caught in his throat. How are you going to do that?" "I have connections," Ibrahim replied, a knowing look in his eyes. "Let's just say I can make things happen that others can't. There's a new, experimental treatment that might save your mother. I'm going to make sure she gets it. I'll personally handle everything." Tears welled up in Julian's eyes, but he fought to hold them back. He had been on the edge of despair, feeling helpless as his mother's condition worsened. Now, it felt as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. This stranger, this mysterious benefactor, was offering him a chance he never thought he would have. As the call ended, Julian sat back in his chair, the world suddenly seeming a little brighter. Ibrahim had promised to buy every one of his paintings, but more than that, he had given him something that no amount of money could ever replace: hope. But just as the relief began to settle in, Julian couldn't shake a lingering question. What was Ibrahim's true motivation? Why had someone with so much wealth and influence chosen him? There was something Julian didn't know, something about Ibrahim's offer that felt too good to be true. As Julian's hope soared, so did his curiosity. What did Ibrahim Traore truly want from him? Was this an act of pure charity, or was there more to the story than met the eye? And could Julian trust a man who seemed to have the power to change everything in an instant? As Julian's life begins to change overnight, so does his understanding of what true generosity really means. What started as a simple act of kindness now seems to have deep, hidden layers, and the more Julian learns about Ibrahim Traore, the more he begins to wonder what the mogul's true intentions might be. But just as Julian begins to see a glimmer of hope for his mother's future, an unexpected revelation sends shockwaves through his world. The days following his call with Ibrahim Traore were a blur. Julian had never experienced anything like it. His phone buzzed constantly: messages, calls, and emails from people all over the country, inspired by his story. Art lovers, philanthropists, and even local businesses reached out to offer support. It felt as though a wave of goodwill had enveloped him, lifting him from the dark place he'd been trapped in for months. For the first time, he could see the possibility of a future, one where his mother was healed, and he could continue creating the art that gave him so much meaning. Ibrahim's promise to buy every painting Julian had posted on Instagram turned out to be true. A courier arrived the following week to pick up the works, each one carefully wrapped and shipped off to an undisclosed location. The transaction alone was enough to cover the hospital bills that had weighed so heavily on Julian's heart. But what followed next was far beyond anything he could have imagined. A few days after receiving the final payment for his paintings, Julian's mother, Maria, received an unexpected phone call. It was from a medical research team that had been working with Ibrahim. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, but the words it spoke sent shockwaves through Julian's entire family. "We've reviewed your case, Mrs. Reyes, and we believe you may be a candidate for an experimental procedure that could drastically improve your chances. Thanks to Mr. Ibrahim Traore's involvement, we've been able to secure a spot for you in the trial." Maria's eyes widened as she listened, a sense of disbelief sweeping over her. You mean there's hope?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "More than hope," the voice replied. "This could change everything. You're being added to the trial immediately. The treatment is new, but it's showing great promise. As the call ended, Maria turned to Julian, her face alight with a joy he hadn't seen in months. For the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled genuinely, and Julian could see a spark of life return to her eyes. That night, as the family sat together in their small apartment, Julian couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. He had saved his mother. Ibrahim Traore had made it all possible. But something nagged at him. Something he couldn't shake. Why had Ibrahim done this? Julian had learned that Ibrahim was a man of immense power, influence, and wealth. Yet, with all that, why would he reach out to a teenager from Brooklyn with no strings attached? What was Ibrahim's real motivation? Could it truly be nothing more than an act of charity, or was there more to this story? The questions kept him awake that night, his mind racing. Just a few weeks ago, he had been on the brink of losing everything, his mother, his art, and his future. Now, his life was taking a turn he could never have anticipated, but the mystery surrounding Ibrahim Traore weighed heavily on him. The following week, as Maria prepared for the new treatment, Julian received another message from Ibrahim. "I'm glad things are moving forward, Julian," the message read. "But we still have a long way to go. Your art is just beginning to inspire people. Stay humble, stay true to your passion, and remember, you're not just painting for yourself anymore. You're painting for something much bigger than you." The words struck a chord deep within Julian. They felt like a command, but one that carried an unspoken weight. What exactly was Ibrahim expecting of him? As the days passed, Julian couldn't help but feel like he was on the edge of something monumental, something that could change the course of his life forever. But with each passing moment, the more he learned, the more questions he had. What was Ibrahim's true role in all of this? And could Julian, in the pursuit of saving his mother, be walking into a situation far more complicated than he could ever have imagined? Just when Julian thought his life had finally turned a corner, the very success he had once dreamed of began to unravel in unexpected ways. With his paintings now in the hands of thousands, and his mother's treatment moving forward thanks to Ibrahim Traore, the weight of fame, and the pressures that came with it, started to take a toll. As the world around him changed, Julian found himself wondering if the price of success was more than he could handle. Julian's art had become a sensation almost overnight. What had begun as a desperate act to save his mother had turned into a full-fledged movement. People from all walks of life, inspired by his story and his undeniable talent, wanted a piece of Julian's world. Art galleries reached out, offering him deals that he had only dreamed of before. Social media followers skyrocketed, and suddenly, Julian's name was on the tip of everyone's tongue. But what came with the adulation and praise was something far less glamorous: expectations. In the weeks that followed Ibrahim Traore's involvement, Julian was bombarded by media outlets, eager to tell his story and showcase his art. Interviews came in waves, and at first, Julian was eager to share his experience. He wanted to thank Ibrahim publicly, to express his gratitude for the miracle he'd given his family. But with each interview, the questions became more probing. "How does it feel to be saved by a billionaire?" one reporter asked during a live broadcast. "Do you think you owe your entire future to Ibrahim Traore?" The questions made Julian uncomfortable. He didn't know how to answer. He didn't want to feel indebted to anyone, not Ibrahim, not anyone else. But as his fame grew, the pressure to answer those questions, to define himself as the grateful artist, began to weigh heavily on him. In the meantime, Maria, his mother, was slowly but surely improving. The experimental treatment Ibrahim had arranged was showing positive results. Her energy was returning, her color was improving, and for the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope. Yet, despite the joy of her recovery, Julian found it hard to relax. Every moment felt like it was being scrutinized. People expected him to keep painting, to continue sharing his art with the world, but it was starting to feel like he was losing touch with the very thing that had once brought him peace: his creativity. One evening, as Julian sat alone in his studio, the doorbell rang. He opened it to find a messenger from one of the largest galleries in New York, a prestigious institution known for showcasing the works of only the most elite artists. The message was clear: they wanted to feature his work in a solo exhibition, with a six-figure contract on the table. At first, Julian felt elated. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But as he looked down at the paperwork, a feeling of unease settled in. The gallery wanted him to produce a set of specific works, pieces that would align with their vision of his art, not necessarily his own. It wasn't just about art anymore. It was about business, branding, and image. The pieces they wanted were bold and commercial, designed to sell to a mass market. Julian's heart sank. This wasn't the art he wanted to create. He had always painted with purpose, for meaning, not for the sake of profit. But the pressure to sign the contract was immense. With his mother's medical bills still hanging over him and the world now watching, the opportunity was too good to ignore. If he didn't take it, would he disappoint everyone who had supported him? Would he disappoint Ibrahim, the man who had saved his mother's life? As Julian sat with the contract in front of him, he couldn't help but think about Ibrahim's words from their last conversation. "You're painting for something much bigger than you." What did that mean? Was it truly about the art? Or was it about the fame, the recognition, and the business side of it all? More importantly, did Julian have the strength to make decisions that were best for him and not for the world's expectations? He had to decide. The contract was sitting there, waiting for his signature. His dreams were at his fingertips, but at what cost? As the pressure of fame mounted, Julian found himself at a crossroads. The path ahead was paved with both opportunity and compromise. What would he do? Would he give in to the expectations of the art world, or would he stay true to the passion that had started it all? And would Ibrahim's shadow, looming large over his success, force him into choices that he didn't want to make? Just when Julian thought the weight of his success was the hardest burden to bear, he was about to face the most difficult decision of his life. Would he be able to reclaim his art and his soul, or would he become another pawn in a much bigger game? The revelation of Ibrahim Traore's true intentions will leave Julian questioning everything he thought he knew about generosity, fame, and the price of success. The following days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and endless decisions that Julian wasn't prepared for. The contract with the art gallery sat untouched on his desk, its presence looming like a ticking clock. He had been avoiding it, knowing that signing it meant surrendering part of himself, his artistic freedom, his creativity. But at the same time, it was a step toward securing his future, a future where his mother's treatment could be fully funded and their financial struggles finally behind them. Julian spent hours in his studio, painting in a haze, trying to recapture the pure joy he once felt in his art. But the pressure was always there, pushing him toward the commercial path, the path where his paintings would be displayed in high-end galleries, sold to the highest bidders, and admired for their market value rather than their soul. The art world, once his sanctuary, now felt like a prison. One evening, as Julian sat in front of a nearly completed canvas, the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't a messenger or an art dealer, it was Ibrahim Traore himself. The last time Julian had spoken to him, Ibrahim had seemed like a guiding light, a benefactor with no ulterior motives. But as Ibrahim entered the room, Julian could feel a shift in the air. There was something different in his presence, something unsettling. "Julian," Ibrahim said, his voice calm but intense. "I see that you've received the gallery's offer. It's an incredible opportunity, one that could elevate your career to heights most artists never reach. I trust you'll make the right choice." Julian looked up at him, his throat tight. "I don't know what to do, Ibrahim. I thought I wanted this, but now it feels wrong. I don't want to just paint for the sake of fame or money. My art is about more than that." Ibrahim studied him carefully, his expression unreadable. "I understand. But you must realize something, Julian. This opportunity isn't just for you, it's for the world. The people who have followed your story believe in you. They want to see your success. You owe it to them." Julian clenched his fists, frustration building. "I don't owe anyone anything, Ibrahim. I'm doing this for my mother, not for a platform. And I don't want to lose myself in the process. For the first time, Ibrahim's calm demeanor cracked, a flicker of something darker passing through his eyes. You don't understand, do you? This isn't just about saving your mother. It's about something much bigger. You're not just a teenager from Brooklyn anymore. You're a symbol. People look up to you. And I've invested a lot in you, Julian. More than you realize. The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. Julian's heart raced. What do you mean by that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ibrahim's lips curled into a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. You think I helped you out of the goodness of my heart? No, Julian. Everything I've done for you, everything I've given you, comes with a price. You've become part of my vision, part of my brand. And now you must play the part. The art, the fame, the treatment for your mother, they're all pieces of the puzzle. You owe me, whether you realize it or not. Julian's blood ran cold. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The man who had saved his mother, the man he had trusted, was manipulating him from the shadows all along. His heart sank as the truth began to settle in. Ibrahim had never been just a philanthropist, he was a businessman, and Julian had become the product. I won't do it, Julian said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. I won't be a puppet in your game. My art, my life, they're mine. I will figure out a way to support my mother without losing myself in the process. Ibrahim's smile faltered. You don't understand, Julian. You can't walk away now. You're in too deep. The public expects you. They expect us. But Julian wasn't listening anymore. He stood up, shaking with a mixture of anger and relief. I'm done, he said firmly. I'm taking control of my life and my art again. If that means starting over from scratch, then so be it. Ibrahim's eyes darkened, and for a moment, Julian saw a flicker of something dangerous behind the polished exterior. You think you can just walk away? Think again, Julian. You're too important to my plan to simply disappear. With that, Ibrahim turned and left the room, his words hanging in the air like a threat. Julian stood there, heart pounding, but with a newfound sense of clarity. The path ahead would be difficult, but he knew now that he had to reclaim his independence, no matter the cost. As Ibrahim left, Julian knew that his life was about to change in ways he could never have anticipated. The safety of being saved had come with strings attached, and now, the fight for his soul, his art, had only just begun. Would Ibrahim's shadow continue to loom over him? Or would Julian find a way to carve out his own destiny?